Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Once we're all settled and ready to go, Gareth will get us underway.
Yep, thanks, Andy. Obviously, I wouldn't normally speak ahead of match day -1, but there's been a couple of statements that have come out of our camp, and I think it was important to come and speak publicly about that, so that the players don't need to deal with that moving forward. I think I'm dealing with a very young squad, and we're in a sport where emotions often run high. I think Raheem, in his post last night, explained that for a very brief moment his emotions ran over, and it would be correct to say that's not the same for Joe. And these things happen in football. Then what you have to find is a way for the group to move forward. That needed some time, needed emotions across the board to calm down. We have some excellent senior players who have played a part in bringing everybody together. And you need, as a manager, to see that the group are prepared to work together moving forward, that everybody's comfortable with that everybody is in the right place. My priority is always the care and well-being of all of my players. And then you have a decision to make as to whether there needs to be something further, which is the right thing for the group moving forward, which was my reason for not selecting Raheem for the game on Thursday. In regards to whether that should have been made public or not, in the end, when you've made a decision like that, it's going to be public on Wednesday or Thursday anyway, and I'd have to deal with it then. I'd rather deal with it now so that we can all focus on the game, decisions being made, and as a group we're moving forward and concentrating on the football.
Okay, we'll now throw it open to the floor for 5 minutes or so. In the interest of fairness, can we limit to one question per person? And we'll start with Carver.
Gareth, first of all, can you tell us exactly what happened yesterday? And did you send Raheem Sterling home and then change your mind? And also, Joe Gomez appeared to have a scratch on his face today. Was that caused by Raheem?
So several questions there. I think the reality is that I'm not prepared to go into detail. I think there is enough conjecture and opinion and talk out there. We don't need to add to that. We've dealt with this as a group. These things happen. And as a group, we've decided the best way forward, and we're in agreement on that, and we move forward from there.
So BBC there.
How did Raheem react when you told him that he'd been dropped?
Again, I think we are a team who, I understand our public profile, and there is incredible, insatiable interest in everything that goes on in our camp. Beyond anything, I think, which exists in any sporting organisation. That's something we have to deal with. That's something we all have to be aware of. And that's the reality of why things become public that in a club often wouldn't. But the detail is not for me to take further. You know, I've said what I think needs to be said publicly, but we have to keep as much as we can between ourselves.
Gareth, there's been a lot of speculation today about whether or not this is the right decision or not because he's England's best player. First of all, if you could just address that, and secondly, the rumours that Jordan Henderson got involved in terms of mediation between Joe Gomez and Raheem Sterling.
I think it's important to always be as fair as possible on any decision making that I make, whether that's a senior player or a junior player. Quite a number of our senior players have been active in discussions over the last, well, certainly during yesterday. I think that's an important process because I want to get a feel for where the group are and how we can move forward together. But then I'm the manager and I have certain decisions that are my responsibility and that I was prepared to take. I think I've answered that there are several senior players who I think have been very mature, as the group have been very mature in dealing with a difficult situation.
Hi, Gareth. Is he still in the leadership group that you have, and does this count against him being captain again in the future?
I think, John, that the decision has been made not to consider Raheem for the game on Thursday. That's the end of the matter for me. We then have to move forward, and that's why it was important to me, if it was possible, to keep the group together was the most important thing. As emotions calmed yesterday, that was clearly a possibility, and everybody worked that through. I'm very impressed with the players, the way they worked that through collectively, and as I say, then I had to make some difficult calls on that, but that's done, and end of discussion on it.
Gareth, can you? I mean, were all the players on board with it, and can you break down why it's effectively a one-game ban? And would you see that as harsh? Bearing in mind, I don't know, something like James Maddison happened last time, going to the casino, he wasn't punished. How do you weigh up that punishment? It would seem harsh, bearing in mind, surely incidents like these happen on a fairly regular basis, don't they?
It's not for me to discuss the details of the incident, so I think there's nothing to be gained from any further discussion on that. In the end, I always have to find the right solution for the group and for how we will work moving forward. And that's a very difficult line. You try to be fair at all times when I'm dealing with all of the players. I won't always get that right, but in the end, I'm the manager. And I've made a decision, and I think it was appropriate for how we want to work moving forward. And for me, it was important that, of course, is a very important player for us, but I felt it was the right thing.
Gareth, I understand that the difficulties of explaining the details, but it is unprecedented in our memories of a player being dropped. And just on Cross's point, this sliding scale of punishment, are we going back to the days where England players had a code of conduct, where there was a sort of a rule book as to what how is this going to play out in the future, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I think in the way it has this time, that I consult very closely with all of the players, and in particular my senior players, and they have a very good understanding of the way that we've worked over the last couple of years. That's brought us a lot of togetherness, which is still there, and that we're a united group, and now we have to turn our focus, which we have done from last night, onto the football. We've got a hugely important qualifier to qualify for a European Championship on Thursday night. Again, that's why I'm speaking now on this, because for me, we're drawing a line under it, and we're moving forward as a team.
Okay. How disappointed are you personally with Raheem for this having happened? It's the last thing you needed, really.
I love all of my players. We're like a family, and all families have disagreements. And the most important thing for any family is that you communicate through those disagreements and you work through them. So I don't expect, as a manager, to never have to deal with things that are either unexpected or are difficult. That's part and parcel of the job, and that's part and parcel of working with elite players. So we, as I say, our focus is now to move forward.
Gareth, have Raheem and Joe spoken today? Have you sat them down together to talk this through? Have you made sure that they have had a conversation, that this is put behind them?
It was crucial to me that everybody in the group is comfortable and is speaking and is ready to move forward with football, and that was absolutely clear. So that's why everybody is still in the camp. That's why everybody is part of the squad. And that's why we're working together towards beating Montenegro on Thursday. So
have they had a conversation today?
Well, I'm assuming I haven't been with them for every minute of the day, but there's all of the players are talking and communicating. Absolutely.
So you haven't sat them down to me.
Apologies, sorry to get around your, but we're going to have to end it there.
Just clarify something you said earlier. You said that all the players were united behind the decision, but it seems to have a different sense than what we're getting. That some of the players felt it's been not been handled right. So how was the actual process of deciding? The statement said last night the whole squad was in agreement with him being dropped from the game. So how do you go about arriving at that decision? Is it a show of hands? Is it the leadership group?
I have discussions with all of my staff. I have discussions with the leadership group, absolutely. But ultimately I'm the manager and I make a decision. And in my view, the group are moving forward. Now, there seems to be all sorts of information being passed from so many different areas. This is a consequence of the England football team at the moment, and that is a very difficult situation, and one that is something we have to think about moving forward, because team getting out, information getting out, there seems to be so many voices in the background. So that's something I have to accept and have to deal with. Every player has had an opportunity to speak to me if they want to. My view is that the group were ready to move forward.
Okay, guys, thank you very much.